Hello world and welcome to Bipey Fox. This is a podcast with a family member, my father or my dad, who has experienced bipolar along with me, I guess. Isn't that right?
I guess that would be correct.
It would be correct.
Unfortunately, you've got bipolar, I haven't.
That's very true. But I guess this is a general discussion without much structure. But I think it's probably just good to have a conversation with a family member and, more importantly, a close father-son relationship and what bipolar has meant for our relationship and for you to see it sort of firsthand with your son. And I think it's probably quite informative and educational and experiential.
I think it's great that after a long time, we're able to have this conversation. To talk generally about what's gone on, what's going to go on, how things are now, what happened in the past. It's very important.
Just for a bit of context, can you tell everyone where not location-wise, but explain where we're doing this podcast?
We're just taking my two dogs for a walk across some horse paddocks at the back of the village where I live.
Oh, good. So, hello, this is my father, and I am his son. What do we want to talk about? Is there anything that you want to talk about in relating to my bipolar, or bipolar in general, or mental illness, or anything like that? Is there anything that you would like to discuss?
If I had the opportunity, I'd try to discuss the experience that we all found ourselves as a family when your bipolar really exposed itself.
Which would be when?
Exploded into our lives properly about just over 2 years ago. When Sam, when you had a manic episode, which ended after a few days of family chasing you around London, trying to get hold of you, trying to calm you before you were finally sectioned and arrested by the police before being
detained. We should say it's not actually arrested, it's detained, because I often said that.
Detained by police and then handed over to medical experts, where the section was formally issued.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the lead up to that and how that affected you personally? I mean, I know that obviously it affected the family a lot, but in terms of you personally, how did that come about with you? What was your experience of that leading up to the section?
Well, I was very frightened for you, for the family, because we were all so concerned. To explain, I guess we are a very close family and we all care for each other deeply, and when one of us is struggling, then everyone, from brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, uncles, close family friends, we all want to be there to help wherever we can. And bipolar in its certain stages sometimes doesn't allow that help.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we've
got to a gate. We're not obviously push, Dad. Push. Having a bit of a problem with the gate here. There we go. It's not a kissing gate, is it, Dad? Otherwise we'd have to kiss, which would be weird. Anyway, go on.
When bipolar reaches a manic stage and the person who's struggling, Tinker.
We've just got the dog, which is good.
So, dog rescued. And when it all broke, when we had the manic episode, I guess nobody in the family understood what the problem was. But we just wanted...
Did you genuinely have no idea? Had it ever crossed your mind that I might have been bipolar? I don't think I've ever asked you that, to be honest.
It's a very good question. I can't cast my mind back 2 years to decide whether that was the case or not. But I don't think we were. We didn't know that. We didn't understand what bipolar was. Why would we? Because we'd never experienced it before. We knew there was something wrong, but we hadn't actually got to that stage where we understood what the problem was. Teddy. So when it all broke and we were trying to find you and trying to help you, and you wouldn't be helped, you wouldn't be...
Do you care to go into detail about what happened from your perspective? I obviously know what happened from my perspective, but do you care to go into detail about, as I say, from your perspective, what happened to me, what I did and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we knew that you were going to be in London. You had an appointment to see a psychotherapist, and we tried to meet you at that point. It was just off Sloane Square, actually, so right in the middle of London. And while we were waiting in the car, hoping that you were going to appear, your mother had a panic attack, which I can entirely understand, to the extent that we had to call an ambulance. So when you arrived, you were greeted with an ambulance outside the psychotherapist's office, and you believed the ambulance we'd called for you. And
but it's actually the mum.
It was actually your mother who was in the ambulance at the time, having serious breathing problems. You then ran off back to your car, which you'd parked in a side street, a one-way side street, back of Sloane Square. You were followed by me and your brother and sister. And when we got to the car, you said, that's it, I'm driving off. And various expletives in the street. You were screaming.
No swearing on the podcast, just for the record, Dad.
You were screaming at us various obscenities, and that we had to get out the way, and you were going to drive off. Tinker! And you got in your car and went to drive off, at which point your brother stood in the way of the car so that you couldn't drive off, and he refused to move. In the end, you simply jumped. Tinker!
So obviously everyone knows that his dog is called Tinker, but she's playing up a little bit, so hence why he keeps saying Tinker, but she's now on the lead, so we're all good. Anyway, carry on.
So we're in the street at about 2:00 on a weekday afternoon with a lot of people around, trying to figure out what was going on, and I'm phoning, trying to get the police to come and get you. And anyway, you got out of your car, left it in the middle of the road, threw the keys down and ran off, closely followed by your brother and sister. Your sister having picked up your car keys, which meant that when she ran off after you, the car was left in the middle of the road. So I was left to deal with that one, which was quite interesting because it was a one-way street and the road was filling with cars, so I had to persuade them all to reverse 100 yards because they weren't going to get past your car that was blocking the road.
Yeah.
So we smile and laugh at that now, but at the time it was absolutely fraught. We were very, very frightened for you.
Yeah.
And as a result, your sister and brother were able to keep up with you. The police were tracking your sister's phone so that they knew where to try and get you. Yes.
Didn't know that.
And it got to a point where your brother challenged you to stop and you pushed him into the road.
I want to interject there because, yes, this is a very much a point of contention, but I can't have you say that and then me not say something. That is not entirely true. I did push him and he did hit the floor, which is, for the record, one of my biggest regrets in life, because I will never forget the face that I saw, but I didn't push him into the road.
But remember that you said to me months after all this happened, and I think it's very important, and you said you couldn't apologise for the way you were and what had happened because it wasn't you, it was the disease.
Wow,
and I absolutely take that, and always have done, to you. I think you know that.
But I think that's a really important point to actually bring into...
It's a massive point.
Yeah, I think it's important to bring into conversation on the basis that actually... I've had this conversation with a lot of people since, and it's very difficult with a mental health disorder to actually separate the person from the illness. That's fine. To separate the person from the illness. And I think actually to be able to do that, and me saying that, I think you remember as well, I don't even remember saying that to you.
Well, you said it to me, and I absolutely concurred. There was never an issue. When a family member, whether they're ill because they've got cancer or a broken leg or whatever, doesn't matter. You still feel for that person, and they're still the same person. But with something like bipolar, the damage of the disease is that the person who's struggling with it doesn't recognise it and actually denies that they have a problem in the first place.
Well, yeah, acceptance is very difficult with bipolar, and I think I can say something on that 100%, in that I don't think I actually fully accepted bipolar until I was in recovery, which was only 2 months ago. You know, and I
think that's right. We went through 2 months of visiting you in an acute ward in South London, where you were, I'm going to use the word imprisoned, it's a bit too strong, but it's basically what you were. Mm-hmm. And you were denying it then. Oh, and by the way, and I was the devil incarnate. Wow. Because I stole your car, if you remember, which was the whole reason why the mania went off the scale.
I think this is another point for me to say something. What I was actually experiencing in terms of that time, and I think I've told you this before anyway, but what I was experiencing at that time was actually, I think, not full-blown, but it was mild psychosis, which is a symptom of bipolar. And actually, I think that would explain a lot of how I was with you, because if I was to tell you that whole situation you just described with the car, I remember all of it, but I remember it like it was a movie. So it's a vivid memory.
I remember it like it was a nightmare.
Wow, yeah. And yeah, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. For me, I actually look back at that and I think I see it like I remember a movie, which is strange. But that's what I'm saying. That's why I think actually at that point.
Which is right, because you were an actor in that movie and it wasn't the real you. It was you as an actor, if you like.
Yeah.
And the movie played out to a degree which none of us had ever experienced before, and we hope we never experience again. And I think the one thing that comes from this, having experienced the ultimate manic episode, if that's what it's called, is that you now know, and it's taken time, but you now know and recognise to a large extent what it means and how it affects yourself and other people, and how you spend an awful lot of time controlling and working on controlling that emotion.
What do you mean? Now,
yes.
No, I think I agree with you up until this point. I think as I stand now, I'm fully, I would say I'm at a point of recovery that is not a worrying point of recovery. I'm never going to sit here and say I'm recovered, but I think I'm in a point of recovery that I'm not managing. I don't have to manage. I listen more to my body and I listen more to my mind. And if I'm getting stressed, then I do something about that, like anyone else should do, whether they have a mental illness or not. If you feel stress, you should do something about it. You shouldn't continue to ride on that horrible wave of stress. You should relax or do something to calm yourself down, or have a nap, or whatever you do to relax. You should do that. For example, I felt that today. I felt stress today. For whatever reason that may be. I know the reason, but we don't need to go into that now.
I know the reason because you were talking to me.
Exactly. But the point is that when I feel stressed, I took myself aside and I spoke to my sister on the phone and I laid down for a little bit and I organised some stuff on my phone and it just relaxed me a bit. But that's what I needed to do.
And that's what I think I just said in a roundabout